This episode of the Creep Street Podcast is brought to you by Martini Coffee Roasters. You know, people always look at me weird when I say I start off every morning with a big old martini. But then I set them straight, and I tell them I'm talking about Martini Coffee Roasters coffee. A delicious coffee made by the Martini family. They roast their coffee using a traditional method of sight and sound to roast those little babies to perfection. And they also sell green coffee beans for those home roasters out there. And right now, fans of the Creep Street Podcast can get 20% off their entire order by using the code CREEPSTREET at martinicoffee.com. Once again, for 20% off your order, use the code CREEPSTREET at martinicoffee.com. Martini Coffee Roasters, the perfect coffee to keep you creeps caffeinated.
You've taken a wrong turn down Creep Street.
Citizens of the Milky Way, this is Dylan Hackworth.
This is Maureen Bogey.
And you have landed smack dab in the middle of Creep Street.
That's right.
Congratulations, you've won, baby.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Creep Street Podcast, Twitter at Creep Street Pod. We're also on TikTok. On our Facebook, we have a little forum called Citizens of the Milky Way, a Creep Street fan page, where daily we interact with our listeners and just post funny stories, scary stories, memes.
That's right.
Just a fun way to get to know everybody a little more. Everyone is welcome to join that. Just click the Let Me In button and one of us will let you in. Also, it's kind of last call for listener stories.
Yes.
That episode will be coming very, very soon. So
right.
Get those stories in.
Get them in while you can, baby.
And of course, if once a week is not enough, you just head on over to patreon.com/creepstreetpodcast for all sorts of bonus goodies.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Maureen, I'm ready to just jump right into this.
Yeah.
Oh. Now, this is truly a sequel.
It is. A sequel of sequels.
A sequel for something that's been a long time coming. I think it's been like 2 years since we did the last.
I think so. Isn't that crazy? I can't believe it's been this long.
Yeah, it's been a while. Maureen, what are we talking about today?
Today we are talking about Cursed Movie Sets Part 2.
Lights, camera, terror.
Ooh, baby. That's right. We are back. I'm so excited to do this episode because the last time we did it, even though it was like 2 years ago, it was just so fun.
It was.
This is the time for summer blockbusters.
Absolutely.
Get out of that heat, go into a nice air-conditioned movie theater and watch some spooky movies. It's that time of year, baby.
Absolutely. It was just perfect. And we know a lot of when we've asked, like, done things online with our social media asking, like, what are people's favorite episodes? A lot of times people say cursed movie sets.
That's right.
So we're happy to give them another dose.
Another dang dirty dose of those cursed movie sets. And this episode, too, it's not just necessarily cursed movie sets per se, but maybe cursed movies or movies that have some weird kind of things going on with them.
Yes.
We're keeping it pretty broad here.
Absolutely. Very excited about this one because we're talking about a couple that I've always wanted to talk about. Very excited.
And if there are other movies that we don't mention here and that we haven't done in our first Cursed Movie Sets episode, please reach out and let us know. You can DM us on any of our social medias, or you can email us at creepstreetpodcast@gmail.com, and we will put it in to Cursed Movie Sets Part 3.
Absolutely.
Whenever that is coming, whenever we make that trilogy.
Ooh, everybody loves a trilogy.
So now here we are with some of my sources for today. First is Cursed Films and Cursed Films 2 on Shudder. It's a great docuseries. Highly recommend you check that out.
Mm-hmm.
Then we have The Curse of Atuk, a Hollywood script that has killed 6 actors at horrorbound.net. 10 movies that allegedly had cursed sets by Lacey Womack at ScreenRant.com, and 15 creepy incidents that took place on horror movie sets by Pradamini Kumari at ScoopWhoop.com.
Ooh, Maureen, I am ready to dive face first into this one.
Please. So we're going to be talking about a few different movies here today. Some of them horror movies, some of them not.
Doesn't have to be a movie about exorcism to get cursed.
Right, exactly, even though some of them do.
Absolutely.
The first movie we're going to talk about today is The Crow.
Oh boy, we about a year and a half ago or so, we did a crossover.
Yes.
With the Bullets, Bourbon, and Karate podcast talking about the movie The Crow. We touched a little bit on the tragedy, of course, but we didn't really get into the curse, the supposed curse.
Yeah.
So very excited to dive into that.
Yes. Now, The Crow isn't really a horror movie per se. I mean, it's got some scary elements to it, but I would say it's more of kind of like I don't even really know how to describe it.
It's hard to explain. It was obviously a comic book, but it's kind of like a noir. It's like there's horror elements, but it's kind of got this weird neo-noir element to it. Yeah, it's very strange.
And it was super influential on many movies that came after it, too, which is very cool. It's a cool movie. I would recommend you check it out if you haven't seen it before. Now, the plot of the movie is about a guy who dies too soon and comes back to avenge his and his love's deaths. So just keep that in mind. Now, when they began making this movie, The Crow, the production office got a voicemail that said that something bad would happen if they continued to make this film.
Wow.
Yeah.
From just like anonymous?
I think it was just like an anonymous voicemail that was left on.
Oh, wow. I didn't know about that.
Yeah, I know. Isn't that kind of scary?
Yeah.
But they went ahead and they started moving the movie forward anyway. Because you can't just stop the movie because of that.
Right. Of course not.
You know, it's show business. The show must go on.
Absolutely.
And the movie was shot almost only at night because the movie takes place in the evening or at night. Now, one night early on, 2 electricians were driving with a cherry picker on the back of their truck, and they were electricians for the movie. And while they were driving, they hit a wire as they were driving, and it caught the truck on fire. And one of the electricians had 2nd and 3rd degree burns on his body from this fire.
Oh, wow.
His burns were so bad that he lost his ears.
Wow.
Yes. And no one died from this, but it was just a very somber way to start off the filming of this movie.
Absolutely. Holy shit.
I know. Isn't that so intense? And like, oh God, losing your ears from a fire. Oh my God, that is intense. Then there was a hurricane that came through and destroyed the backlot of their set in North Carolina, which is where they were shooting. And because of these incidences, this movie was known to be cursed as it was being made. It was kind of like, even in articles that were written about the movie being made and things like that as it was being made, we're saying how this crew and the production as a whole seemed to be cursed because all of these bad things kept happening as they were filming. And the main character of this movie was played by Brandon Lee, who was Bruce Lee's son.
Yes.
And the Lee family had a curse of their own, because Bruce Lee, he himself died under mysterious circumstances while filming a movie. And it wasn't really clear exactly what killed Bruce Lee in the first place. Like, some people thought that it was like Chinese organized crime families coming after him for revealing secrets having to do with martial arts. Some people thought it was because of a painkiller he was taking. Some people thought it was heat stroke, because apparently he had had his sweat glands removed. So some people thought that it was like a heat stroke or something like that.
Oh, wow.
Because before he died, he had had a seizure and maybe even a stroke, apparently. So some kind of mysterious, weird circumstances revolving around Bruce Lee's death. And so the Lee family already had this quote-unquote curse on them because of maybe there was something going after the male members of the Lee family.
Right.
Sure. There was one scene in The Crow where Brendan Lee was supposed to have a knife thrown at him. But kind of last minute, they changed it to being shot at. And they moved the camera, or they moved the actor to kind of get a better shot. And it kind of changed things up last minute when they were getting ready for this. And apparently they had sent the weapons guy home as a way to, like, I think they were just saving money or they just weren't thinking about it.
Whoops.
The weapons man. And when they went to go take the shot, they shot at Brendan Lee, they called cut, and Brendan Lee didn't get back up. And it turns out that there was a dummy bullet that was loaded in the barrel 2 weeks before, and they didn't check the barrel for an obstruction, and so the dummy round was actually still in the gun. I don't completely understand guns, so I don't really understand like how this exactly happened, but something having to do with because dummy bullets look and actually basically they look just like regular bullets, and they pretty much are regular bullets, except there's like the gunpowder is taken out, and like there's certain things in there that are different about it. I really don't know a lot of the details. But essentially, this dummy bullet was there, and it was obstructing the barrel, I guess. I don't know. So the dummy bullet essentially became a real bullet, and Brendan Lee was shot in the abdomen. They immediately called for a medic, and he spent 6 hours in surgery, but passed away on March 31st, 1993, right when they were almost completed with the movie. So this is one of those things that is just such a tragic mistake.
Right.
Where it isn't the actor's fault that pulled the trigger at all. I think the actor who did pull the trigger felt a lot of guilt about this for the rest of their lives, which is so sad because it's not their fault.
I know. It's such a tragedy, really. I mean, obviously it's a tragedy, but it kind of twofold in that way.
Right. It's like it affects everyone so much, and like that was not that person's responsibility. It was some people's responsibility.
Right.
Some people were responsible for that. The people who sent them home, and sent the weapons person home, and that the fact that the gun wasn't checked in on and all of that stuff. But it's not the actor who shot him's fault by any means. And it's hard, too, because it's like, up until that point, so many bad things had happened on set, but kind of calling it a curse once someone dies just makes it seem so much more real, and you want to be respectful to the life of the person that actually died, to Brendan Lee.
Right, exactly.
So, I don't know, it's just crazy, but at first they thought about not completing the film at all, because it was just such a tragedy, and Brendan Lee was like the whole movie, basically. And this was supposed to be his kind of star maker movie.
And honestly, I mean, you watch it, I mean, he was so good looking and so he really did have that movie star charisma.
Absolutely. I think he would have gone on to have a huge career.
Absolutely.
But his fiance and his mom both wanted the production to go on and for the film to be finished because Brendan Lee cared so much about this movie, and it was, unfortunately the last movie that he would ever be in. So they wanted it to be completed and they wanted it to be released. So they used Brandon's stunt double to finish the film, and the makeup artist created a mask for the stunt double to wear to really look like Brendan Lee, and apparently the mask was really, really on point, and it made the stunt double look so much like Brendan Lee, and it really freaked out everyone on set.
Oh, wow.
And it was just like really, really morbid to see this person there on set when you know that he had just died on set in such a tragic and unforeseen way.
Yeah.
And the movie went on to be released, and it has had a cult following ever since. They were able to complete the movie by taking out some of the dialogue that was supposed to be in there. They took out another character that they were going to film more of, this like skull cowboy character they took out.
Oh, yeah.
So they were able to go forth and finish the movie, though. It came out, and it's been kind of a legend ever since.
Right.
I recommend you guys check it out. It's a really good movie, but it is sad watching it knowing that this happened.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that will wrap us up for The Crow.
What's next on the menu?
Our next movie that we're going to talk about is The Wizard of Oz.
Oh my God.
So not a horror movie at all. I mean, it's got some scary parts, don't get me wrong.
Absolutely.
But this is not a horror movie, but this movie has been said to have been cursed by many people over the years. Now, this is one of those movies where it's like, I don't know if it being cursed is necessarily the right term for this, or if it was just this was made so long ago that people didn't really know any better what they were doing.
Right.
But maybe is that part of the curse? I don't know.
Right.
You tell me, Creep Street citizens. Now, the first part of our story with The Wizard of Oz that makes it seem like it might be cursed is there was an actor named Buddy Ebsen who was originally supposed to be the Tin Man. Now, he was like a song and dance man of the time. He was a movie star, and people thought that he would be great for the Tin Man. He apparently was very excited to play the Tin Man and all of this. But when they were getting him ready for the role and when they were practicing makeup and costumes and all that stuff, they tried out the makeup on him, which was just crushed up aluminum.
Oh boy.
Yes. So as he was wearing the makeup, he started getting cramps in his hands and in his feet. But then the cramping spread throughout his body to the point where he couldn't really breathe. Now, it turned out that the crushed up aluminum that they were using in the makeup was being inhaled by Buddy Ebsen, and it was coating the inside of his lungs.
Ugh.
He went to the hospital with pneumonia, and his lungs were literally scarred, and for the rest of his life, he had a tendency towards bronchitis. And unfortunately, he was too sick from this to continue with the film.
Wow.
Another weird health issue that they had was that they used real asbestos for the snow and the poppy field scene. So that's not good. That'll get you.
Yeah. It just goes to show you like how as time moves forward, there are things we do that we realize was so stupid.
Right.
And we might look back on it now like, wow, that was dumb. But like there's probably things we use, consume, things right now that in 20 years, 30 years, people are going to be like, those fucking idiots.
Right, exactly. Now, the Wicked Witch of the West was played by Margaret Hamilton, and she really went through it in this movie, let me tell you. There is one part in the movie where she says, "I'll get you, my pretty, and your little dog, too." Mm-hmm. Classic. And at that point, there is a big burst of flame, and then she disappears. So Margaret Hamilton did have a stunt double, but they actually didn't use her stunt double for this scene because they wanted to get it all in one take. So she had to do this scene herself. And so how it would work would be she would say her line, she would walk down to this platform, and then she would tuck in her arms during where smoke would, like this colored smoke would arise. And then she would fall down through this platform as the floor would open up.
Right.
And then flames would pop off. But unfortunately, when she was doing this, her hat and her broom caught on fire. And she had 3rd-degree burns on her hand and 2nd-degree burns on her face.
Wow.
And as I'm sure you can recall, she's also wearing green makeup in the movie, and this makeup was copper-based, so as it heated up, it could have eaten into her skin.
Ugh.
So they had to clean off this makeup immediately after this was happening. So as she has these fresh, new, horrifically painful burns on her skin, they have to take rubbing alcohol and press it into her skin and rub it off. Rub off the makeup. And she said that it was a pain like she had never felt in her entire life, and she never, ever forgot it.
Oh my God, yeah, that's awful.
Yeah.
Awful.
The pain, and it was so bad at the time she had to be completely wrapped up like a mummy. She actually told her son that she was dressed up like a mummy so to not freak him out when she came home.
Yeah.
But then 6 weeks later when she went back to work, they wanted her to film the skywriting scene where she writes with the smoke coming off the back of her broom. And what they did was they had like this gasoline-powered engine right next to the broom that would let out smoke. And they showed her, they were like, okay, here's your fireproof costume. And she was like, absolutely not. I'm not doing anything that requires me to have a fireproof costume.
Right.
Like after what I've just gone through, like I'm not doing this. So her stunt double did it. Her stunt double, Betty Danko. And when they were filming it, the smoke mechanism broke and she went one way, the broom went the other way, and metal pieces started flying everywhere and they embedded into Betty Danko's leg.
Ugh.
And so that required her to stay in the hospital for a while. So I'm sure Margaret Hamilton was like, I'm glad I didn't do that. I'm sorry Betty Danko got hurt, but I'm glad that isn't me at the same time.
Right. Wow.
So once again, here it's like, is this referring to a curse possibly, or is this just kind of some negligence?
Right.
Or just some accidents from people not knowing any better? I don't know. Now, there is this classic urban legend about one of the Munchkins having hanged themselves in the background of one of the scenes where Dorothy, the Tin Man, the Cowardly Lion, and the Scarecrow, when they're going down the yellow brick road, that you can see one of the Munchkins hanging in the background, like as if they have killed themselves.
Right.
Now, this is just an urban legend. This didn't actually happen. There's a lot of uproar about if this is real, if this isn't real. I hate to be this person, but it's not real.
Right.
That didn't actually happen. They wouldn't just leave a dead body on screen.
Right.
There were some issues with the little people that played the Munchkins. Now, there was this huge rumor going around for years, and I think it even still persists to this day, that all of the little people that played the Munchkins during the Wizard of Oz were all drunks. They were having these like raucous parties and having orgies and just going crazy and all of this stuff. But that really wasn't true. Maybe there were some parties, I'm sure, that existed and things like that. Apparently there were 10 that were quote unquote rowdy, but everyone else was just normal doing this. They all stayed in this hotel, the Culver Hotel. About 100 of them stayed there. But like I said, only like 10 of them were getting up to crazy business.
Right, right.
But these rumors started all the way back in 1967 when Judy Garland went on TV. She went on the Jack Parr show, and she just outright said that the Munchkins were all drunks and were super inebriated and the whole time and were getting into trouble and just super, super raunchy. This was not the case when, in reality, Judy Garland was actually drunk and high and inebriated while she was saying this.
Right.
This kind of goes all the way back to when Judy Garland was filming and was making The Wizard of Oz. She was 15 or 16 when she was making The Wizard of Oz, and your body is changing at that time, but they didn't want her to gain any weight. They wanted her to still look like she was a young girl.
Right.
So they gave her these like pep pills for her to keep her energy up and to decrease her appetite. And then they also were giving her these like downer pills to take at night because she wasn't able to sleep.
Right.
Because she was taking these pep pills all day long. And this kind of began her issue with addiction that she battled the rest of her life, really sadly. Her issues with addiction kind of stemmed from The Wizard of Oz.
Right.
And once again, does this have to do with the curse, or is this just people not knowing any better at the time, not knowing about addiction and substance abuse and things like that, and they thought they were just doing what they had to do to make a good movie?
Right.
So yeah, I don't know, but there clearly were a lot of issues going on with The Wizard of Oz and the making of it, but it's lasted to be one of like America's most beloved movies that's ever been made.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's funny to think of this happy movie being cursed, but
right.
But maybe it is. I don't know.
Yeah, it's such a it's more just like tragic. You know what I mean? There's some we're gonna get into where it's actually like, whoa, that seems like supernatural shit.
Right.
Whereas these first few, it's almost just tragedy.
Just tragedy and like really bad luck.
Yeah.
And just craziness going on.
Right.
So now let's talk about a horror movie that had some weird activity on set.
Please.
Let's talk about Insidious.
Wow, a James Wan film.
A James Wan film. Last time we talked about the Conjuring universe.
Yeah.
And how that has had some issues during the making of it. But this one, Insidious, also had some issues while making this movie. And not just the first movie, but all of the movies in the Insidious franchise as well.
Interesting. Okay, I did not know that.
Yes. Many people who worked on this film reported feeling uneasy. Like there was just like a negative energy all around them while they were filming. Some of the crew members complained about feeling sick, just feeling generally unwell, especially when they were in the hospital-themed set. Which is, interesting. And I guess they could hear this like strange buzzing noise coming from various empty rooms on the set. And that was just completely kind of unexplained.
Yeah.
They couldn't really figure out where that was coming from. Another movie that had some strange activity going on with it was the movie The Possession. Now, apparently the activity going on the film of The Possession was so intense that star Jeffrey Dean Morgan came into filming this a skeptic, but left being a true believer.
Oh, wow.
Now, the cast and crew felt unexplained gusts of cold air on set, and the Dybbuk box that we've mentioned that a few times on the show before.
Right. That deserves its own episode.
Its own episode for sure. We'll have to do that. But the Dybbuk box was kind of the center of all of this weird activity of like doors opening and closing and lights turning on and off and weird gusts of air and just generally weird feelings going on the set. And the Dybbuk box was put in a storage facility after filming Wrapped, but then was destroyed in a fire.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I don't know. Another horror movie with some weird activity going on with it was The Exorcism of Emily Rose. Apparently there was a lot of weird activity going on the set of this, especially with the star of the movie, Jennifer Carpenter. Apparently, Jennifer Carpenter, but not just her, but I guess other people on the set too, experienced that their radio on their alarm clocks in their hotel room would just go off all of the sudden.
Oh, wow.
And it happened multiple times to multiple people, and I guess one time it was playing Alive by Pearl Jam, which really freaked Jennifer Carpenter out. I guess they all collectively agreed to get rid of their radios, and I guess once they got rid of the radios, those spooky occurrences stopped.
That's interesting.
Yeah, but weird that like the radios kept turning on.
Yeah,
I mean,
the
like,
radio.
what is that about?
Yeah, very interesting.
Yeah.
It's like it was trying to communicate or something.
Right. And it clearly wasn't just like an electrical issue because it was happening all over the place. It wasn't just in
Right.
one room or something like that.
Right.
Now let's talk about another movie that had some very, very interesting, weird shit going on with it. This movie is called The Serpent and the Rainbow.
Oh, yes.
Yes, I've never actually seen The Serpent and the Rainbow, but it looks like a very scary movie that we'll have to watch at some point.
Yeah.
So, which is funny because it kind of is a horror movie, but it's not totally a horror movie at the same time.
Right.
It kind of goes beyond just the horror movies of its time. Wes Craven was the director of the movie, and he actually kind of wanted to move out of doing only horror at the time.
Right.
So he kind of thought that this would be a good opportunity to do that. The Serpent and the Rainbow was based on a book that was supposed to kind of authentically talk about voodoo in Haiti and kind of the idea of zombies in Haiti, like that there was this potion or this powder that you could ingest or take or whatever, and that it would fake death so completely that it could even fool a doctor.
Right.
And that this is what this book was about, but it was kind of like unsensationalized, and it was written by a professor and an anthropologist. So it was supposed to be like a pretty legit, unsensational writing about Haiti and about voodoo. But the movie kind of took a different turn and kind of did sensationalize voodoo and did kind of play into a lot of the stereotypes of voodoo.
Yes.
And they actually filmed the movie for the most part in Haiti as well. And so when the cast and crew arrived in Haiti, they were all blessed in a voodoo ceremony. And a lot of them are very glad that they did this because they thought that things could have been even worse if they hadn't. The writer, Richard Maxwell, had a nervous breakdown while in Haiti. He thought that he was under a voodoo spell, or maybe he just had some nervous breakdown because of the stress. I don't really know, but he believed that he was under a voodoo spell.
Interesting.
One of the cast members, Bill Pullman, he had like a dream or a vision or something like that was very intense that he, I guess, doesn't really talk about very often, but it really affected him deeply as well.
Right.
They used real human bones in certain scenes that they got from graves.
Which is so stupid.
Yeah.
Well, one, like, morally reprehensible, but like, what?
It's just weird. Like, they had to move headstones so that the dolly could move.
Jeez.
But when they moved the headstones, they realized that there were graves all around that weren't very deep and bodies weren't in coffins, so they were just like excavating human bones as they were moving headstones.
Oh my God.
So that they could get the dolly to move throughout a graveyard.
Wow.
They were underpaying extras to the point where extras kind of rioted and revolted, and the crew had to run away to the Dominican Republic so that they could finish filming the movie over there in the
Wow.
Dominican Republic. So they were kind of chased out of Haiti, not because of exactly what they were doing in the movie or because of excavating bones or things like that, but because of the treatment of some of the extras.
Right, exactly.
So yeah, this movie is like just one of those things where they just dealt with a lot of issues being in Haiti and filming down there, and they did a lot of bad things
Right.
down there with graves. And it's weird because you don't want to like sensationalize it even more, but at the same time, like they really were experiencing these weird things going on. And so I don't know, this is another case of like, is this cursed or is this just people just being kind of negligent?
Right, just sort of bringing it upon themselves by just being assholes.
Right.
Yeah, very interesting. Now, Maureen, I think you've probably saved the weirdest for last.
I believe I did.
This is the one I've been so fascinated by this story.
Yeah.
For so long. This is truly, when you see this goes beyond just humans being assholes or negligent or what, where it's like truly feels supernatural.
Yes.
And it involves a lot of former alum of the Second City where we were.
Yes.
And what's the irony of it is this film was a comedy.
Yeah.
It's not a scary movie at all. It was
No.
a comedy.
Yeah.
Mo, go ahead.
All right. No, this last movie was actually never made
Yeah.
because they never were able to get to the point of making it. And it was called A Took, I believe is how you pronounce it. It was going to be a movie based on a Canadian book, and John Belushi was the first actor to be attached to the film. He was offered the role in 1982 and apparently was very interested in the movie right away. Thought it was funny, thought it would be a good fit for him, was very into it. But unfortunately, just a few months later, on March 5th, John Belushi was found dead in his hotel room at the Chateau Marmont when he was only 33 years old. It turned out that he had died from a drug overdose.
Right.
Probably a speedball.
Yeah.
After this, after they lost their lead, after they lost John Belushi, the script kind of went back around, did the rounds, and in 1986 was offered to Sam Kinison. Now, Sam Kinison was offered to play the lead role, and in 1988, production was supposed to start, and the filming was supposed to start in just about 8 days when Kinison stopped the production. He wanted to rewrite some of the script. And apparently there was like issues with who actually had creative control and all of this stuff, just a lot of issues that delayed the movie even more.
Right.
And then in 1992, they were going to start back up again. But unfortunately, during the negotiations when they were figuring all of this stuff out, Sam Kinison passed away as well. He died on Friday, April 10th, 1992, when he was only 38 years old. He was in a car accident in California. He got in a car accident with a 17-year-old drunk driver.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Sam Kinison, he didn't die right away. He was alive after the crash. And I guess they couldn't see any injuries on him at the time. I guess it was all internal injuries, but they didn't know that. And I guess Sam Kinison began talking to himself and saying that he didn't want to die. And then, as if he was talking to someone, he said, "But why?" And then said, okay, and then lost consciousness. He could not be resuscitated and unfortunately died from internal injuries from the car accident.
Oh, horrible.
So sad. Then in 1994, they approached John Candy for this role.
Wow. Unbelievable.
I know, isn't this crazy?
Because with every name, you already know what happens, essentially.
Yeah. Now, John Candy was interested in the role as well and began to work on the script. But then in March, while working on a different movie in Mexico, he passed away of a heart attack. And he was only 43 years old. John Candy had reportedly asked his friend Mark O'Donoghue to be involved in the film, and he read the script and liked it and was going to possibly join the cast. But unfortunately, November of that year, he also passed away. He had a history of chronic migraines and died from a cerebral hemorrhage at 54 years old. Then, 1997 rolls around, and the movie is still kind of bopping around, and the lead role is offered to Chris Farley. Chris Farley knew that John Belushi, his idol, had been offered this role as well and was set to play the role. So this was like a huge honor, very exciting for him, and he was ready and willing to do the part.
Right.
He was very excited. But unfortunately, Chris Farley died of a drug overdose also at the age of 33. just a little while after reading the script on December 18th. Now, Chris Farley had introduced his friend, Phil Hartman, to the script as well, and Phil Hartman was going to possibly play another part in the movie. But 5 months after Farley died, Phil Hartman's wife killed Phil Hartman in cold blood. They got in an argument after Phil said that he would leave her if she started using drugs again. Then she came into the room at about 3 a.m., shot him twice in the head and once in the side, and then she shortly thereafter killed herself as well.
Awful.
And so the movie since then has just been kind of halted on production. I'm guessing it's probably never going to get made now.
Yeah, like who would dare, you know what I mean?
Right. I mean, isn't that just crazy? Like,
absolutely.
I know that could possibly be a coincidence that all of this happened, but I don't know. I mean, it is just so much weird shit going on.
Right.
That it's just absolutely off the walls bonkers.
That is last one. I'm glad we saved that one for last, because that one is truly just like, what are the odds?
Right.
Like, how does that, like, what are the damn odds
of all of that happening? I know, it's absolutely crazy.
Absolutely crazy. Well, Maureen, thank you so much for doing all that research.
Oh my God, it was my pleasure, my absolute pleasure.
Well, let me tell you something that's a pleasure of mine.
What?
I'm about to post the casting list, and these are our top tier Patreon subscribers.
Oh my God.
And we have a newcomer.
Oh, very exciting.
Folks, the names of our top tier Patreon subscribers: of course, the Dream James Watkins, the Finnish Face via Alungfus, the Madman Marcus Hall, the Vivacious Vicky McHugh, the Tenacious Teresa Hackworth, the Heartbreak Kid Chris Hackworth, the oh so suave Sean Richardson, the British Bone Breaker Bex Martin, the Notorious Nicholas Barker, the Terrifying Taylor Lashmet, the Count of Cool Cameron Corliss, the Archduke of Attitude Adam Archer, the Sinister Sam Kiker, the Nightmare of New Zealand Noeline Vavilli, the Loathsome Johnny Love, the Carnivorous Kevin Bogey, the Killer Stud Carl Staub, the Firestarter Heather Carter, the Conqueror Christopher Damian Damaris, the Awfully Awesome Annie, the Murderous Maggie Leach, the Sir of Sexy Sam Hackworth, the Evil Elizabeth Riley, Lauren Hellfire Hernandez Lopez, the Maniacal Laura Maynard, the Vicious Karen Van Buren, the Arch Nemesis Aaron Bird, the Sadistic Sergio Castillo, the Rapscallion Ryan Crum, and the newcomer, the Beast, Benjamin Wang.
Yes, Benjamin, thank you so much for joining us. We are so happy to have you as a part of the Creep Street Homeowners Association. You are absolutely so welcome here, and we are absolutely blasted out our ass happy to have you.
Absolutely. If you want to be like Benjamin and the rest of the gang, head on over to patreon.com/creepstreetpodcast for all sorts of goodies. Of course, like, rate, subscribe, hit us with that 5 stars on whatever outlet you listen on. Tell friends, family, loved ones, all that good stuff.
Please.
Citizens of the Milky Way, my name is Dylan Hackworth.
I'm Maureen Bogey.
Good night and goodbye.
Goodbye.